Hey everyone. This is going to be episode 4 of What's Been Better. This time we're going to talk about responding or not responding to the things that push our buttons, to the things that trigger us, and where we go from there. A heads up to the moms and the mother in laws. We cuss a little, so excuse me, baby. All right, so I'm Sylvia,
And I'm Lori.
and this is What's Been Better. So, what's been better, Lori?
Wow, what has been better? I've gotten more rest.
Good.
Yes, I've had better sessions because I've
Okay.
had better rest.
All right.
Yes. So that's been better for me. What's been better for you?
Uh, had more of an awakening. So I've almost had like the opposite of you of being like rested. I've been like taking more control and like stepping into my power and my voice this week. It started out as a wild week, but we will get into that later. But yeah, I think I've
Okay.
had like a little bit of an awakening, a little bit. So
I'm excited to hear about this awakening.
well, we have to remind everyone if you have not listened to the previous episodes, please go back and listen to them because wow. But a little bit from last week, you started talking about watching the movie Long Shot and how something happened in the movie that kind of pushed your buttons. And that led me to think about how we respond to pushing buttons. So tell everybody what happened when you watched the movie Long Shot.
Well, Long Shot was a great movie. It was a love story, right? About a guy who probably didn't think he could win the affections of this one woman. She was pretty much in his mind out of her reach, out of his reach, rather. And they ended up getting together though. And at the end, they actually got married. And he took on her last name, which is a spoiler. So I'm just gonna let you
It's
know.
fine. People will
But
see it or not.
right or not, right? So but he took on her last name. And so I'm sitting there with my boo and I noticed his response. Well, he was kind of like a chuckle. Now he says he's chuckling at just the antics of around him taking the last name because you remember the last part of it. It was a lot of little jokey jokes, him with a
Mm-hmm.
tattoo and stuff like that.
Yes.
But when he said that I even got her last name or something like that. I think he said something like, "Yeah, and I even took her last name or whatever." He chuckled. It was like a knee jerk type of chuckle,
Okay.
which I in turn I was taken aback a little bit too, and so it brought to my mind the egocentricness, the male chauvinistic way of men, but then also how we as women bought into this thing. And
That
then to
part.
think, right, to think, hmm, will he take my name? And he told me, he said no. And I said, why? He was like, because
Really?
yes, he said, because I like my last name. I was like, okay. I'm not gonna say that was a cop out, you know. But I think that therein lies the programming though,
Right.
because I am big on how we have been programmed to think a thing. I like my last name too. Shit. Like, but we naturally give it up. And
Yes.
it's a no thought. Like, of
Yeah.
course we're gonna give it up.
And
And yeah.
it's a
So
it's a weird thing to give up, especially like my name, my last name, my maiden name was very unique. And so I only went by my last name. Everyone knew me by my last name. So to give
mm,
it up, it was awkward to go back into situations where people were still calling me that
mm-hmm,
name.
mm-hmm.
But it was like, I gave it up freely. I was like, whatever. It's okay.
Right.
Bye.
Right.
Because it was the norm. And I think too, I wanted to step into something else. I wanted to like have this life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when it came time for me to give it up, I was not able to give it up right after we got married. I had to wait years to give it
Okay.
up.
How is
So
that?
we had moved out of the country. And so all of my documents were still in my maiden name because we got
Oh,
married and moved out of the country within 20 days. So I didn't
okay.
have time to like do any of that.
Mhm.
So when it came time for us to move back to the country, I was like, oh, first thing I'm doing, first thing.
Right, right, right.
So,
And so I think that's a thing for us to consider, like,
mhm.
because it really had me thinking, like, to say, what is in a name?
Mm.
What is in a name? And how do we just give ourselves over to and do we give ourselves over because it's something like um is something we're supposed to do, or is it that we love this person so much that we just want to join in with them? And then does that other person, and I'll say the male part, would they do the same? Do they love us so much that they would even say, I'll take her last name too? Even if it's not the norm.
I think therein lies what it is. It's like we are all conditioned and programmed to go with the flow, do the normal thing, or not not have to jump through all the hurdles because a lot of times I often feel like this is that the hurdles that are in place for women don't necessarily exist for men. And
Mm-hmm.
so men are like, I don't understand what the big deal is. It's because
Right.
you don't realize that these hurdles happen. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to think about those things. So
Right.
obviously, it's not a big deal to you. You have no idea.
No, you don't have to go change your name. You don't have to adjust. There is no
Right.
adjustment,
Right.
which goes along with all the adjustments that women make. I mean, we make tons of it,
Right.
especially when we have babies.
I
So
don't know
many
how y'all do it.
So I don't, want to digress to that, but it's just to say, where is the love? I like, where's the love in that?
Yeah.
Is there any love in the changing of the names? And would a man do it?
I think it's like a deeper thing too of like how far is the other person willing to go for their partner?
Mhm.
Even, I mean, when you think about hurdles of like birth control and like, why aren't men more willing to get a vasectomy, knowing that it's reversible, knowing that it's not going to do that much harm to you, but you're willing for your partner to take medications or have implants or things that could be really detrimental to them? I guess it's the same question of like, how far are you willing to go? But also in the same twofold of like, women are willing to bend over backwards for their partner more so than men are willing to bend over backwards for them. I know that they'll say like, I want to be protective, I want to, be the man, I want to lead and be the head of the household and be the head of the family, but show it a little bit more, I
That's it.
guess.
That's it. Which puts certain things. I think it puts certain things in perspective. Like, if you're really looking at a relationship on all fronts,
Mm-hmm.
you get to find out where someone really is. And I don't think that conversation is had. And I think it
No.
would be really good for couples to have an intellectual conversation about the relationship as much as it comes to them. When something comes to them, speak about it, because actually I never considered it until that time, and it just didn't sit well with me.
Were you automatically going to change your name? Did you automatically just know that that's what you were going to do in the future?
Yeah, I was planning to do that, but when that happened, and when the when he said, hey, yeah, I like my last name, no, I'm not gonna do it, there was a pause.
Really? Like
Like,
it
for
gave
me,
you pause of like, oh, maybe
yes,
I won't do
it,
it?
right, it gave me pause because I'm thinking, hmm, okay, I like my last name too, but now what? Where do we go here? Or do we create a new last name?
Oh, that's some futuristic stuff right there.
Right. Because we can create a name to where we both have each other's name.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, which goes into another thing. Do we care about what people think?
Everybody does. I know you're not supposed to, but everybody at some point, even if it's a big thing or a little thing, cares about somebody else's opinion. Your parents, your friends, your boss, your neighbor, your somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Some interaction somewhere matters.
And how much does it matter? Does it matter more than your person?
That's the programming. And I think I've asked this before is like, how long does it take you to be deprogrammed?
Right.
Because you've been
And
on this
so,
trek.
right. And so that's where I am right now. I'm at a place where I think we probably need to take each other's name.
Hmm. Now that's an interesting conversation that I want to hear what his response to it is. Is he willing to do that? Is he willing to join names?
Well, we will soon see.
I mean, it is an interesting thing, and it does go to the heart of like that pushed a button that you didn't even realize was a button.
Right.
Like that triggered something that you were like, wait a damn minute. Like, the fact that it gave you enough pause that you were like, oh wait, I want my name too. Like how do we deal with this in other situations where it's like, how far do you take this conversation? Do you even respond to that? Are you reading too much into it? Or is it one of those situations where every time something hits a button, you have to respond to it?
I think it calls for thought and processing. It's not to respond to it in a way that's the knee jerk and you get into your feelings about it.
Mm.
It and honestly, as I say this, I'm saying respond however you respond because I'm not the police of responding. However, I think it's really good to consider how do you really feel about whatever gets you, whatever hits you. Like, do your best not to go past it as though your body, your mind didn't say, hey, something's going on here. Investigate that. When that's there and we know it, that's learning how to trust your gut. When your gut says pause, pause. Think about this thing for a second.
Right. Right. Yeah. I I I think, like I said, this week started out very wild and it was a lot of decisions to be made about how I was going to respond to conversations, contacts, just different things. Like, was I going to respond and how I was going to respond? And I did exactly what you just said. I took time and I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Now, were those thoughts long thoughts or were those thoughts immediate thoughts? Is the difference for me because some things I was like, oh, no, 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 I'm going to choose not to respond. And here in my brain is the reasons why I'm going to choose not to respond.
Mm-hmm.
So, if anybody has heard the first 3 episodes, you know that, especially that first episode, I was going through it. I was going through a lot. I had been ghosted by an opportunity and I had been let go of another one. And so this week, the beginning of the week, I got a phone call and I got an email. And I got a text message. The phone call and the email came from a former colleague, another journalist who I respect and does really amazing work. And they were talking about a job opportunity and all these other things. And we were just, talking and talking and talking. And they wanted to know essentially, was I still with the other organization and what I was doing now? So after talking to them, I didn't tell them all the details about being ghosted, but I said, I have this article. It might be good in your news outlet because they have a newsletter. Would you consider reading it and featuring me? And long story short, they read it, they added their notes, and they featured it in their newsletter that goes out to thousands of people. And
Wow.
then turned around and said, hey, do you want to be on my podcast also?
Wow. Look at that.
So I was a bit dumbfounded, but it took me to say, do I really want to do this? Because I thought, I have put this in a box and sent it out to sea. I didn't want to talk about it anymore. I was going to archive the doc. I was just going to like leave it alone.
Mm-hmm.
But something told me like I wasn't done with it and I couldn't just move past it. So my response to them was very, I thought it through, but it was almost immediate because I had already been in my head thinking, okay, you're not done with this. Get it done. And so yeah, it was interesting.
What
It
did
was
you decide to do?
I decided to edit it, write it, reformat it for his newsletter and gave him all the like, yes, put it out there and put my name on it, not a problem with it. And then I decided to do the podcast.
Yes.
So Monday I did the podcast and it was great. I think part of it was great because he and I had already done a podcast before
Mm-hmm.
together.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's actually how I had gotten started on the radio show when everything was working with him.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not think I would ever be doing it again. I
How
didn't
was
think
that?
I would be talking about any of that again because I think I had finally started to make peace with
Mm-hmm.
it just wasn't going to happen. Those people weren't going to call me back. This article was just going to be floating out there. And but I kept thinking, okay, so many people are talking about this information that I'm sitting on right now. And no
Right.
one's necessarily talking about it from this perspective. I was like, oh,
Right.
I just want to talk about it. So to have the option of it being put out, I was like, okay, just do it. Just get
That
over
is
yourself and
so,
just do it.
I love that. And so they reached out to you though, right?
Yeah, they reached out to me about something completely different.
Uh-huh.
And I said, well, while I have them here, I might as well mention this
Mm-hmm.
just to see what they wanted to do. Because they could have easily said, oh, no, I have something else, or I'm already featuring somebody else, or whatever. I've already written something about this,
Right.
anything. And I was willing to hear that,
Right.
which is, I think, another part of this awakening, this metamorphosis, this thing that I'm going through of like this shift from everything is negative to what could be the positive, what could be better.
Right. And look at what is better. What actually happened as a result.
Yeah.
And that's to me when you don't allow yourself to go down a rabbit hole, one of negative thinking, not enough, all these other things, but rather everything is going to work out when it works out.
Yes.
And it did work out. And it wasn't too far ahead that you had this lag time because the information is still relevant now. And it was presented, which
Yeah.
is it's huge.
It really, it felt really good. And it also helped me to practice more of the four agreements and to
Mm-hmm.
really turn myself back to that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, now, all these highs don't come without lows. So that was Saturday and Sunday. Saturday talking to them, Sunday editing, Sunday being published, Monday doing the podcast. So it was like fast. It was very quick. Um, but in the process of that, someone from my old gig reached out to me and text messaged me. And it was such a trigger to see their name pop up. And it was one of those things of like, I have removed them from every social media, from all the other contacts. Why didn't I block them in my phone? I don't know why I didn't. I don't know why I didn't. So for their phone number to pop up, I was like, no. Like I had immediate like knee
Right.
jerk reaction.
Right.
And I just swiped it and I was like, nope, not doing this. I'm not even
How
going
did
to
you do
read
that?
it.
Right. But that takes such um it's almost to say you pulled yourself in, you were poised and you didn't, and what is the word I'm trying to say? you didn't give into, hey, I just want to find out. I just want to know what they said.
No,
Right.
no, no,
It was
no.
willpower or whatever. You tell me. How did you do that? How did you prevent yourself from going in
I will
out of
tell
just
you.
pure curiosity?
As soon as I saw it, and I have it up on the screen right now, I'm not even gonna like read it or anything, but I'm just saying, um, as soon as I saw it, I thought to myself, oh man, there is the hole in my armor. I ran and patched it up immediately, closed
Mm-hmm.
up that armor because I have I feel like protecting my peace
Okay.
that I'm on a journey to find. The more
Mm-hmm.
and more peace I get, the more and more I'm trying to hold on to it. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, this will break my peace, almost like breaking a fast for Ramadan. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, no, 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 it's too early.
Mm-hmm. I
It's
see.
way too early. And I immediately, this is another thing I went back to the four agreements. I listened to the last, I think it's like 45 minutes of the book
Mm-hmm.
where he talks about you need to be able to get to a point where you have forgiven the person enough that even seeing their name or hearing their name doesn't trigger you. And
Mm-hmm.
I knew that I wasn't there yet. So
Mm-hmm.
I was like, until I can be there, I'm not reading this.
Look at
And
that.
I'm minding my own business. Like, I'm minding my business. Leave me alone. You said what you
Wow.
said. You did what you did. We're in this situation where we are no longer working together. And I am not in a place where I ever feel like I could work with you again. I
Mm.
don't want to speak to you right now. And I
Wow.
feel like even though that's avoidance, it is protective for me. And I need to protect myself as much as I can right now.
Right. So to avoid that, because you said, even though I know this is avoidance, is that a bad thing?
I don't know. I think I put that in like a question to you. Is like, is avoiding okay? Okay.
Again, I think sometimes we label things as good or bad.
Mm,
And I don't know that we need to label something good or bad in certain situations. Because if someone's out to get you,
hmm.
right? If you avoid where they are, is that bad?
See, I don't think that it is. I don't think that it's good or bad. I think it's just like you don't want any more harm done to you.
Thank you. So,
And if I wake up in the morning and say, do no harm to anyone or to myself, I knew that
it,
I was going to harm myself by falling back into this. Like, what conversation is there to be had after all that drama from January?
right. So, I am the master of reframe.
Yes, ma'am.
And so instead of saying I'm avoiding this situation, I am protecting myself. I am protecting what I hear, what I see, what I feel, what I think. I am protecting that. I am protecting
Absolutely.
my peace.
Absolutely. And I think it was another part of like, so I could hear you in my head a little bit. I was thinking about your adverse words, and I think can't is one of them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I literally said to myself, I was like, I can't do this right now. I can't figure this out. Instead of, and I stopped myself and I said, ooh, don't say can't, don't say can't. Say that you don't know right now. And then I was like, ooh, don't isn't any better. And I pivoted and said, I need to work on figuring this out,
That's wonderful.
which is
So,
completely different than anything I would ever say.
well, that's huge. But what difference did that make?
It made a huge difference because I was able to, that text came like as I was like brushing my teeth and stuff. I was able to literally look at my phone, say, no, I'm not doing this. And I looked back at myself in the mirror while I was like about to brush my teeth. And I was like, you're good enough. You don't have to do this.
Thank you. Wonderful. Because when we say we can't, and so let me give some understanding about these adverse words. It's not so much they're adverse, is what there's is meaning behind it, right? If
Mm-hmm.
you say you can't, right, you're saying I can not, right? It's no choosing in that, almost to say my choices are not they're taken away from me. And we always have a choice. We can always choose. And so the answer for that is I will not, right? I will not look at this, because that's you choosing to look at it or not look at it. You can't. Yeah, you can. You can do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
So,
So I immediately like finished up, and I had to think about that other podcast because that was what I was doing that day. I had to like prep for that.
mhm.
So I was like, no, no, no. I have other things that I have to do. I have
Right.
things that are way more important. And I have things that it's something that I want,
Mhm.
which will always come first because I'm on this path of thinking about like, do for you, put your mask on first, and then you can help everybody else.
Exactly.
And so it was like, okay, okay, okay. I just had to keep telling myself, like, you're okay. Everything is fine. You're enough. It's okay. Everything is fine. And I gave my phone to my husband and I was like, just look at this and tell me if it's some kind of emergency. Because I had to think, like, oh, this person is still like, they're in control of the money and they're like the HR person.
Mhm.
So, um, is it something about our taxes or, something like, is it something that I didn't, because I left so abruptly, was there something that wasn't done? Those like closing things that you have to do. So I was like, just read this and tell me, do I need to worry about it? I was like, because I'm not willing to even look at this. And so he read it and he was like, yeah, this is a waste of your time. Just swipe it.
Look at that. And what a beautiful husband
Yes.
to be able to um come to your aid. It's like, listen, like being your right hand man in that moment.
And one day I hope that I can like repay him on all of the times that he is that, because I often feel like it's just so unequal. Like he's always having to come to my rescue when it comes to like these mental challenges that I have. So it's a thing that I struggle with, is like I'm often in distress.
Mm-hmm.
I know that like we're partners and we literally call ourselves teammates. But I just don't know if I'm always doing enough on my end as a partner.
Okay. So
And he's
that's
always
gonna
like
be,
reassuring of like, yes, it's
yeah.
fine, you're doing enough, and whatever. But I'm always like, oh, am I?
Yeah. Well, that's gonna be something to work on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
And it won't even be him being able to reassure you, because you can't receive enough reassurance from him or anybody. It's
No,
gonna have to definitely come from you. And
yeah,
when you decide, it's gonna be make all the difference. So
yeah.
so whatever did you decide to do? Did you ever read it? Did you ever?
I only read that text today when I copied it into our show notes. I had not read
Okay.
it. I did not
Okay.
respond. No,
Okay. Okay. And so is it your intention to respond?
no,
Okay.
no.
Would that be considered ghosting?
Ooh, now hold on now. Wait a
I'm just
minute.
curious. I am very curious. I'm just what would that be? Would that be ghosting?
I don't know if that would be considered ghosting because there was never an initiated set of contact between the two of us. This is
Mm-hmm.
one person reaching out and
Mm-hmm.
one person not responding. So is that ghost? Is it is it ghosting if you haven't actually interacted? Like if there was no initial reaction.
Well, I wonder if there's a question, right? So was there a question in the text?
Uh, of whether or not I will give them a chance or would I choose to reply. They,
Mm-hmm.
it's not necessarily, there's no question mark, but it's
Yeah.
just kind of like they're leaving it up to me to
Mm-hmm.
respond. So maybe this is a form of ghosting in a different way, but yeah, I guess so.
Well, and so this is my so I'm glad we come back around full circle to the ghosting aspect, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
People can do whatever they do, and you can respond however you respond, because ultimately we don't owe anybody anything. That is a principle. We don't owe anybody anything, and it's not as it relates to money. So it's about um this thing that people feel like they need from you. Just like when we talk about the validation, almost like you getting validation from your husband about
Mm-hmm.
your worth, right? It's only going to come from you. That validation that you're seeking is only going to come from you. So if somebody doesn't respond to you, and which goes back to the 4 agreements, it's up to us whether we take that personally or not, because people can do whatever they choose to do. They don't owe us anything. You don't owe that person a response, and that other person doesn't owe you a response. But there are consequences, of course,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because whatever you put out is what you get back.
So am I putting out that what am I putting out by not responding though?
I don't know. What would you say you're putting out? What's your, because there is a message in you not responding. You know that message. Now they don't know the message. They can imagine the message, which would cause them to make assumptions about you not responding. Right. But you have your own message. And what is that? What's your message in not responding?
I guess I'm not healed enough from
Mm.
the situation, from the like literal mental anguish that everything that went down caused me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm even more angry in the fact that this whole situation caused that much mental anguish that I'm even giving it breath now and
Mm-hmm.
life now. Um, but I guess the only thing I could think of is like, oh, I don't remember what movie it is when they're like, I don't got to do nothing but stay black and die at this point. Like, this is where I am when it comes to that situation. And I guess it's very difficult to say all of that when it's like you want to close the door, but the other person is still trying to like put the door stop or put their foot in the door. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, how do you let the other person know that there's no sense of like peace that will come out of this for you, and that you're not willing to do anything but close this door? Like, I don't want to have this conversation.
Right. And you don't have to. You don't have to have this conversation.
Yeah.
And also, it sounds like this is like maybe, like you said, I think you said is too soon, right?
Yeah.
It just might be fresh. It could be an open wound. It could be a lot of things that you're saying. If I were to respond to this person, they might get the full heat, right? I don't know.
Right. Because, yes, I mean, at the end of the day, like, first you're hurt, then you're 38 hot. Like,
Mm-hmm. Right.
so, and I don't want to be 38 hot.
Right.
Like, I don't want anybody to receive any of that because I can. And
Right.
I'm not
And
willing to have that amount of energy come out
absolutely.
because I don't
Absolutely.
think they deserve it. And I'm not saying that they don't deserve the wrath. I'm not saying that they don't deserve my anger. I'm not just saying that they don't deserve to be hurt. But what I'm saying is like they're they don't deserve my energy.
Mm-hmm. I heard that loud and clear, which is awesome. And more than they don't deserve your energy. How do we even exert energy in a way of people who do not show you that they care?
Right. Because like when we were in the situation, you should have cared. When we were in the situation and you were supposedly my friend, and I use that term so loosely these days, um, you had your opportunity to do the right thing or to do better. Not
Right.
necessarily it didn't have to be right or wrong, but just to do better.
Right.
You handle the situation the way you handle the situation. So make that bed and lie in it, but do not come and try to put it back on me as if I'm going to absolve you from the things that you did. You
Mm-hmm.
know they were bad. You know
Okay.
how this all went down was bad.
Do you forgive?
Yeah.
Are you okay? Do
But
you
as
forgive?
but
Mhm.
as I remember, it was a very old show. I'm gonna age myself. Laguna Beach. It's a
Mhm.
whole big knockdown drag out between these two girls. And the two girls says, you know what? I forgive you, but I want to forget you.
Mm. Oh, that's profound.
I know I'm like totally, if anybody has ever seen Laguna Beach, you know which scene I'm talking about. But
I
very
want to
mid
forget you.
2000s MTV.
That's
Um,
so interesting. I want to forget you.
yeah, because I don't want to
Huh.
have these interactions ever again. And I think even you and I have had this conversation about like, you only get one time to hurt me. You only
Mm.
get one time to like find the little hole in my armor. You only
Mhm.
get one time. You
Mhm.
cannot give people 22 chances to do more harm,
Mhm.
especially when they
Mhm.
find that hole and they know that that's your weakness.
Mhm.
Absolutely not. I'm not giving you ammo against me
Right.
because
Right.
that's technically my own ammo against me. I'm not doing that.
Right.
I'm not doing
Right.
that.
That's so yeah, I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah. It's a
And so
weird situation.
I love how you're handling it though, because you're it's like you're making sure that you take care of yourself, especially the promise that you make every morning about doing no harm, right? Like the choice to do the opposite.
Yeah.
Because I
It's
think when we say that, really the opposite is in place to say, I will protect myself or
and
whatever that means.
I will make myself happy.
Right.
Is a bigger thing for me because I spent years literally speaking the words out loud to myself and to other people that I would get happy later.
Mm.
It's later. Right now is later.
Okay.
It's just one of those things of like I will not move forward if I'm not happy. And
Okay.
I started this journey of like trying to get happy and trying to find peace when we moved back to this country because I
Mm-hmm.
spent like all of that time being miserable, like
Right.
horribly miserable, and
Right.
not seeing the situation and not seeing like what's better and not knowing that I had the capability to be happy then.
Right.
And then moving back and being like, oh, if I would have, could have, should have, which
Right.
you know, and I know is not the right mindset, but it's it's things that I've been saying for years to other people, but not enough to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like, oh, no, no, no. I have to tell myself this first. I have to put my own mask on first.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because for me, I would say if we're not checking to see how we perceive a thing, then what difference is it going to make for the other person to perceive the thing from our perspective? We have to take care of ourselves. And a lot of times there is this projection of we are thinking more about another person than we are to ourselves. And really, that's a falsehood. And there is something that Maya Angelou said that I love this. Beware of the person who says, I love you. No, beware of the person who gives you a coat and they're naked.
Ooh. Okay, so this makes me think. So we're watching Love is Blind on Netflix with my family.
Mm-hmm.
And a guy had been, I think he was like vegan or vegetarian for like years.
Mm-hmm.
And now that he is, I'm totally giving out a spoiler now. Now that he's engaged to this girl and she's a meat eater and they have like all these other differences and things that they don't holistically agree on.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "Oh, I'll try that steak with you." And I was
Mm-hmm.
thinking to myself, like, you made a lifestyle change and have
Right.
lived this way for I think it was almost like a decade. And
Wow.
because now you are maybe or maybe not going to marry this person, you're willing to do something so drastically different and so to its core what you are against for
Mm-hmm.
someone that you may or may not spend the rest of your life with. And even
Right.
if you did, you're willing to go that far.
Right.
That's the raincoat and them that's the same to me.
Right. Which goes back to, how do you feel about yourself? If there's if there's a lack of love on your end, how can you say you love someone else when you don't love yourself?
Right.
That is a contradiction in terms. And for someone in it, in that analogy that you use, this person is a vegan and they're going to eat a steak. Do you know the harm that you're going to put on
Right.
your body and the shock that your body is going to go through? And for what? To impress? Because the person on the other end, I'm just curious to know what they're thinking. Like to say,
Right.
if you can go back on something that is principally, because if we operate from a principle status, principles do not change. They
Right.
don't change for the weather. They don't change for a new lover. They don't change because a situation posed itself. Principles don't change. So for you to change your perspective right now, what's going on?
And I mean, just on a whim, they did it. Like, I mean, just like the steak was there. The person was like, oh, I'm having this steak. And he's like, I'll try it with you. What? Like, to me, when the lady didn't say, no, you don't have to do that, or, oh, no, that's totally against what you stand for, or whatever, when they didn't block them, they kind of like added to the pressure of it. I was like, this relationship doesn't make sense.
Or that person never stood for that in the first place.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Hmm. I don't know. That show is a lot. It's an
Yeah.
interesting show. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But and it makes me happy to watch the show with my family, because this is a thing that I was talking about last week of like making time, having time, wanting to interact with people. So
Mm-hmm.
having this little bit of time with them is just it's filling my cup. It really is. I know it seems like trivial and frivolous, but these are the things that I was talking about last week about like I just want the time and the interaction.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just does something for me. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it
That's cool. That's
mm,
cool. Now, I want to mention I guess circle back about responding, because we mentioned responding as one of the points to speak about. This responding, how does responding and ghosting correlate?
oh Jesus. Wait a minute. Um, ooh,
Right?
are they polar opposites at this point?
I think so. I think so. Like, when you mentioned to respond or to not respond to a trigger, right? And so I think that text became a trigger because that person's name represented something, right? And so it
Mhm.
represented something for you. And there were feelings that were associated with that name, such that you probably consider, I'm not going to respond. Is that what happened?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think it it's more than just their name appearing. It's the once going through that situation, it's kind of like who you are and what you stand for. Now I know those things off of like
Right.
how you went about this situation.
Right.
And it also goes to the heart of like I, I don't know if you've been in these situations where it's like it's more than one black person in the room, and then it becomes like a competition between you, and there can only be one. I
Mm-hmm.
had no warning signs went up that that was going to be the situation, but that's what I took away from it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like a whole nother layer of a trust being broken.
Right.
And it also um unfortunately became another one of those proving points of like, this is why I don't work with all women,
Mm,
because that, which is a whole nother thing that we will have to unpack one day of like, that's kind of
yes.
what all went down in Abu Dhabi when we lived there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, all girls school, all girls staff, all women, even security guards were women. I mean, it's just women on women on women on women the whole time.
The estrogen. Oh my
It,
goodness.
it was
The
overload.
levels of estrogen, and I would love to find out what the research says about an overflow of estrogen and what that does.
Let me be the data point number one of like, it could go really well or it could go really south.
Wow.
And I've seen the highs and I've seen the lows.
Right. And it's interesting too. And I really want to also do my research on this about the power dynamics with women. Right.
Oh, yeah.
Because I've heard some really good um, stories about how women go on trips together and they have such beautiful outcomes.
Right.
And it brought joy to my heart because I've heard so many times how, and I'll use Black women or African American women to say, oh, we can't get along, and we are always fighting, or it's catty, or we're jealous of each other, all the negative things, right? But then there are some great outcomes as well.
Yeah.
So I love to hear that as well. So to hear what just happened to you is heartbreaking because it showed some level of, and whenever these type of things happen, it just informs how emotionally immature certain people are. It shows up
Yeah, including
when
myself,
okay.
I'm not gonna like throw it all on them that like they were completely immature. No, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I'm extremely emotionally immature. And I say that because like look at all of January and
Right.
how those what seem to me now as not that big of things took me so far down.
Mm-hmm.
There were some bigger parts to it. Yes, there were some like things that just should not have absolutely shouldn't happen. But I think all of them piled together caused a lot of trauma and caused a lot of yeah, I'll say like mistrust. Like it's gonna be a while again before I'm like, okay, I could work with all women again. It's gonna be a while. It's gonna be a while.
I think it would be good to reinforce yourself
Mm-hmm.
because I think it's about us every time. Like if we are, it's like going back to the drawing board, maybe doing uh some emotional exercises, if you will, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like to say, I couldn't lift that 300 pounds, man. I got to go back and do some more bench presses, right? Is being able to do that so that you can govern yourself. Because I think if we could govern ourselves, we can exit and enter and exit
Yes.
and enter so that we, like you said, every morning, I need to do no harm to myself, or I need to maybe choose joy or choose happiness, peace. I'll even add that because every day I say that I choose peace.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want peace that passes all understanding. That's my mantra every single day. So if in those situations and you're in a group of women and you sense it because your gut is your God, if you will, right? As soon as you sense, ah, I got an exit stage left.
Right.
My peace is being threatened.
I want to get to the point though that when my gut is like giving me the first little gurgle of like that is the moment where I exit. I
Mm-hmm.
have trouble with it because I will wait until it's like I'm drinking a whole bottle of milk of magnesia, and then I'm like, oh no. And it's like you knew the first little wave in your stomach. You knew the first hiccup
Right.
that
And
something wasn't
so,
right.
right. And so then the question would be then, how can you honor it then? What can you do to do that?
Well,
What needs to happen? Yes.
for me, the very first thing is like I have to work on trusting myself. And I've
Yeah.
said this before, is like, I just don't have enough trust in myself. And it's, who else could I trust?
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing, is like, it's happening to you.
Right.
There's no one else.
Right. Right.
Personal, not personal. You're in the situation. So, and it's your stomach that's giving you that little like,
Yeah. So the question is, how can you listen to it? What needs to happen to listen to it? How would you know that, you are listening to it? What would be happening?
oh, no, no, no. I hear it.
Okay.
I
But
just
did
don't
you
listen.
right. So that's what I'm saying.
I have
Right.
to make the choice to listen.
Okay. How can
Yeah,
you choose
because I
then?
hear it.
Okay.
I totally hear it. It's
I
that
get
thing
it.
comes out like at an alert at all times.
Oh,
But it is
okay.
I choose to be like, no, it'll be fine. I'm always giving
Okay.
that extra inch, the extra mile, the extra whatever. And it's like, why are you giving the chances? Stop
Right.
it.
I don't even know if it's a why, but what do you want to do instead?
Mm, yeah.
Because in knowing why, it doesn't make you listen, right?
Okay.
So we just choose to listen. And the question would be, what will have you listen? What will be that thing to say, yes, I choose to listen at the very instant that is right there? You know, how can you do it the next time? And it's that.
Yeah.
And the more you practice that, the better you get. But it's about practicing.
Right. And I think that's, you just have to put your hand on the stove one time and then you go, oh no, not again. So I think this is just, even though it was a replay of previous situations, like small parts of it were replays of previous situations, and I chose to be like, oh, maybe it should be fine. I think it's just more practice, like you said, of like, okay, it's not going to be fine, you know better. But I think the where the struggle or where the push and pull is for me is that I don't want to be right about the bad things. I don't want to be right about like, oh, this is the same situation. You know, it's
Okay.
the same. I want to give that chance because I want to, number one, I'm always gonna like see the positive in people or things or like
Mm-hmm.
situations instead of just automatically being like, no.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-mm.
Right.
But it's in that like wanting, longing feel that I cut my ears off and I go, no, 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 don't listen. It's fine. It's fine. You're just
I
being
get it.
you're being over dramatic,
I
or you're just doing too much. I'm in that space instead of being in tune with my star player and being like, no, ma'am.
right.
You heard
You
what you
know,
heard.
what came up for me just now when you said that is that you're a teacher, right? And in teaching, we're going to always be put in situations where we have to teach. And so you happen to be in this particular situation yet again to where you're going to teach because this is a different group of people. They don't know what you know. They don't know the experiences that you had before and how you overcame it. And so whether you listened as soon as that gut told you or you listened a little bit later, I can imagine that you still listen at sometimes. At some point you listen. And so maybe it could be you asking yourself, when did I listen before? What was happening that had me listen?
Oh, absolutely. Because like in the previous gig, in the previous situation, I know the day that I was like, oh no, we should stop this. We should get out.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the day that I was like, oh, that should be fine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Knowing full well that I saw the red flags, I saw the billboard flashing, I saw the exit signs, I saw all the things. And I was
Right.
like, no, no, no. It's just you. It's only
Right.
you. Only you are
Right.
feeling like this. And we
Right.
don't trust you.
Right. So now what have you learned? Because there's always a learning. So
This is more proof that I should trust myself. This is
nice.
more proof that like I know what I'm talking about.
Exactly. So now what do we do the next time? because it's always going to be a next time.
Right. That's the
Not be
hard
the same thing, but it will be a next time. Life is just like that.
That's the challenge, is that there's always a next time if you're given the time. And I said this week too. I don't know if I have 30 minutes left or 30 years left.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm not about to do is keep putting myself in situations where I'm not going to be at peace,
Right.
or that I'm not okay with whatever the thing is, or that I'm not doing what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Okay.
you just don't even know how much time you have. Why are we just sitting in the house? Why
Right.
are we accepting things? Why are we settling?
Right. So then there it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a huge settle to see the red flags and go, no, it'll be okay. That's a settle.
Right. Well, we know that now, hindsight, but in the moment, it's about trusting our gut, because
Mm-hmm.
you know now, even because your gut will flash you back to a time when the red flags were there. And to
Right.
say this is a red flag moment, exit stage left. It's
Yeah.
just a matter of you doing that because you're putting that mask on,
And
because that is the mask.
I think too is like, once you go around the sun enough times, you have the examples.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen this before.
Right.
Just because it's like the reboot and these are the younger actors and they are a little bit different, it's the same situation.
Yep. Absolutely.
It's a hard, I gotta stop saying hard. It's a puzzle that you have to keep putting back together. Same
Right.
puzzle.
But this is a great thing to say, right? It's a puzzle that you keep putting together. So, what is it about a puzzle that you keep putting together? Are you not expert? Are you not better at putting that puzzle together? Are you not, like equipped, proficient? You're not a novice anymore,
Right.
right? Because you've seen the plays, you know what to expect, you know it. So, we just do it.
Man. And I think the weird part is like it's the same puzzle, which means you're getting better at putting it together and you're putting it together faster.
Right.
Why are you not putting the puzzle back in the box and saying, stop putting this same puzzle together?
Well, I think, and that's a perspective. Yes, that's a perspective. Yes, you can have. However, it's not the same puzzle, and it's not the same box.
So it's not the same puzzle, but it's the same kind of puzzle.
Yes, it's the same kind
Okay.
of puzzle, but it's not the same puzzle. It's a different variation. It's a variation of the same, if you will, but it's
Okay.
not the same. And so, if you look at your strength says, okay, I didn't do this, but I did do this. And if you look at what you did do right, maybe we fan that flame, right? And so maybe we don't beat ourselves up and we look at what we did do, right? Because if we look at every time we didn't do this and didn't do this, how are we going to ever be equipped? We know how to dang on put the puzzle together, but we're always
Right.
beating ourselves up. What? Because we didn't put it together fast enough? Well, it's not always beat is not enough.
Mm-hmm.
But if
Yeah.
we look at what you did do, because there is something that you did do and you did do well.
Here we go again, Lori. Lori got my brain on fire, y'all. One more time. it yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's in the compliments. I think it goes back to, again, like we said before, about we can't get enough validation from outside of us. We have to validate the inside. And when we validate the inside, we won't um we won't be beating ourselves up. We're gonna run into a rut. We will. But it doesn't mean that we're going to fall the same way each time.
Yeah. That's
So
it. That's we're ending on this. Is that I know the warning signs. I have the gut feeling. I have to validate that feeling
right.
myself,
Yes.
not run and ask someone like, hey, has this situation happened to you? I
Right.
didn't need to ask 20 people had they been ghosted in this particular way. I didn't
Mm.
need to like show everybody the emails that I was getting from that last gig to say, do you see this? Am
Right.
I crazy? I
Right.
needed to validate myself of like, oh no, we need to exit.
Mm-hmm.
We need to stand on our word. We need to do whatever the things are that we need to do. So I think that's it. It's the validation. It's the validation.
Absolutely. And I would say this, if someone ghosts you, we get to a place where we say, okay, that's fine. You
Yeah.
don't owe me anything. I'll
Which
keep it pushing like you did. And you got that article out there.
yeah. Yikes. I really did. I really did.
Yes.
And I think too that because they don't owe you anything that these things become less painful.
Yes. Bravo. They become less and less painful to where, like when you said the last part of the 4 agreements, it can happen and it just doesn't even phase you.
Right.
It's just,
Right.
oh, it's just something that happened.
All right. Lots more to think about. Another fun, cool episode. This is always good to talk to you. Hopefully, we are reaching out to many new people this time and that many more people will come. We're going to cut it right here and we'll be back next week with hopefully a little less triggers and more understanding, more awakening. Peace and blessings, y'all.
That's it for this week's show. I'm Lori Scott.
I'm Sylvia Johnson, and you've been listening to What's Been Better.
A big thank you to Lagan Music Inc. for providing our music. This show is edited and produced by us with a little help from our family and friends. We love you all.
Want to talk to us about the show? Send us an email at questions@whatsbeenbetter.com or hit us up on Instagram at whatsbeenbetterpodcast.
Thanks for listening.